This is the More NBA podcast brought to you by the Genesis Company, coming at you Monday morning. It's December 4th, a few days off here for the Wolves since the Charlotte game on Saturday before they next play Wednesday evening against San Antonio. That's one of those rescheduled in-season tournament games, whatever you call those things. So we are going to focus this episode on that Charlotte game, some themes that came out of it for today's show. I have Chris Hine here with me, who is actually at the game and in the locker room in Charlotte. That is Chris Hine, Wolves beat writer from the Star Tribune. Chris, how are you?
I'm good, Dave. How are you doing this morning?
I'm good. You know, it's we had the Saturday game, and then you watch like football on Sunday, and then I'm laying in bed before I'm like, wait, what happened in the game on Saturday night? Congratulations to your 49ers, by the way.
Yes. They're back. They are back.
Super Bowl's back on.
Super Bowl's back on.
I saw a tweet. I'm assuming this is accurate. Not always true with the tweets. That Brock Purdy is the MVP favorite right now.
I mean,
get out of here. No, that is the dumbest. Why give it to Christian McCaffrey?
He just put up 320 yards and 4 touchdowns.
You think Brock Purdy is the most? You think Brock Purdy is the most valuable player on your team?
I think Nick Bosa is the most valuable player on the 49ers,
then
honestly.
Maybe I'm not even trying. I'm not trying to be like one of the Brock Purdy looks like a biology teacher guys or whatever. But
I mean, I don't know.
Why do we not give it to different positions?
It's split between the two of them in my mind. I don't know. Purdy's making so many good decisions.
What about Christian McCaffrey?
I know, Dane. I know. But I feel like if you lose Brock Purdy to Sam Darnold, it's worse than going from Christian McCaffrey to Elijah Mitchell, if that makes sense. So
disagree.
But
you're the Niners. You're the Niners expert.
I'm glad we turned this into a 49ers podcast. I'm sure the listeners and the viewers out there are loving this right now.
We're 2 minutes and 15 seconds in. I hope they could survive it. To talk about the basketball team that they keep winning. Mm-hmm. I really liked your gamer off of this one. I like to be like that guy, but I like when somebody presents something to me about the Wolves that I haven't thought of or haven't thought of recently. You know, I mean, for both of us, right? We spend all this time writing, thinking, doing whatever about them. And I'm reading your story. I'm like, I totally forgot that it was in Charlotte. Or honestly, I probably didn't even know it was Charlotte last year.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't at that game either in Charlotte. That D'Angelo Russell had the quote about if he catches the ball, he'll score. And it was the first sort of subtle signal that things weren't all copacetic in Wolves world about 12 months ago this time last year. I think it was actually the day after Thanksgiving.
It was late November. Yeah.
So
more than a year ago.
So same timeline. And it was, I mean, honestly, really credit to you that it's tough to write a gamer and it's kind of tough to pull all those thoughts together. That was so perfect given what the game that Rudy played this Saturday was, where he was catching everything and he was dunking everything. And that game was so emblematic of a team that does trust him and will throw him the ball. And he talked about that after the game.
Yep.
Whereas the D'Lo quote there wasn't. And it was a frustrating thing at this time last season with Rudy of he wasn't catching the ball a lot, right? They didn't know how to pass it to him. So I just thought that was really a really well done thing. I guess I'll just let you kind of.
Thank you. I mean, if you just want to pump up my ego for the next 45 minutes, I'm here for it.
Well, I had to make up for the 49ers.
I mean, I had that thought about maybe halfway through the game. I was like, oh yeah, that was here in Charlotte where D'Lo said that, because you're seeing Rudy get 6 dunks or something like that
in the first half.
Yeah, exactly.
Crazy.
And it's just wow, this is a night and day difference from literally and I was like, yeah, it was about a year ago. It was just after Thanksgiving, and it's it couldn't be any more different. He's got a point guard that likes to play with him, that knows how to utilize him. Karl and he have this chemistry. That was just before Karl got hurt. That when they played Charlotte last year. Karl and he continuing their chemistry as well. I mean, they had a couple 2 or 3 lobs in that game. I think Karl to Rudy off the pick and roll. Kyle Anderson, we know he's always been one to look for Rudy. It's just like Finch talked about this at certain points last season. I remember he talked about it right before the trade deadline too, right before they made the trade to get Mike Conley. And it was like, he's like, Utah, kind of built the roster around Rudy a little bit and what Rudy does well. And I think the Wolves have kind of finally engineered this roster to maximize what Rudy does. And that trade, obviously, at the deadline last year was a major, major part of that. And that kind of quote is always kind of stuck in my head about like, yeah, we need the right pieces in and around Rudy to make that work and to really utilize him, not just on defense, but on the offensive end of the floor as well.
Yeah, I watched some of the I wasn't, you were in Charlotte. I wasn't, but just some of the locker room video on YouTube. And I clipped this, shout out the Timberwolves content staff for giving, for making this available and going on the road and doing all these things. But it was cool to, again, after I'd read your story about D'Lo's feelings on Rudy, I go and look at the YouTube channel to hear Rudy's feelings on Cat and the appreciation he had for him. I thought this was pretty cool.
It's a blossom for the last year.
I mean, Cat is just, for me, just amazingly unselfish.
Next question.
Yeah. No, just what I want to say, what I really appreciate about Karl is that he's looking for me, and a lot of times, especially last year, and even sometimes this year, he's trying to find me and he turns the ball over and yeah, it's nobody likes to turn the ball over in a basketball game, but he keeps trusting me, keep looking for me, and so it's fun to when after going through tough phases with the chemistry starts to click, and he's able to find me on the perfect lobs and he's able to find me on those duck-ins underneath the basket, and it's demoralizing for the defense. You have 2 guys that are dominant and that are also able to make each other better. I mean, I think it's what makes us make us already, but gonna make us unique. And if you want to get where we want to get, I think that's gonna be a key for success.
How was it?
I have some numbers. I just looked up some of those like passing, like assisted by numbers. But first, I mean, he's literally talking to you in that video clip. I'll let you respond to that first.
Yeah. And Karl was behind us, by the way. And so that's why there was like a little bit of laughing there because Karl was like, I don't want to hear this next question or something like that. But Rudy kept on with his answer. And I thought
but he made a point to keep. He was like, "I want this on the record.
He's like, I want this. I want people to hear this. I want people to." And I think it kind of ties into what we're talking about. It's like he was appreciative and is appreciative that Karl was one of the people that is always kind of stuck by him, I guess, in a way, even through those early struggles. Wanted to keep making this work, sometimes to Karl's detriment on the offensive end. And we've heard them talk about like maybe Karl was trying to make this work a little too much at the beginning of last season. But I think, that looking long term, that has paid off now in this year because they do have a much better, much more seamless chemistry this season than they had at this time a year ago. So, I think it's worked. It's working better than I think a lot of people would have thought. Working a lot better than it was a year ago. They get along well. That's the other thing is, I don't know, beforehand, before the trade, it was always like they were kind of rivals and Karl, I think seemed to relish whenever he got the best of Rudy. And we know that they were competing for those all NBA slots, which were also, money as well. So, they go from being rivals and now they're friends and they have great chemistry on the court, off the court, seemingly as well. And it's worked just about as well as you can hope. And like I said, just that scene in the locker room, being there this year and then being there a year ago, couldn't be any more different. Really couldn't.
It stood out to me one time in training camp or something when Finch referred to, he was talking about Karl's nature, and he said at one point, he's like, he's a pleaser by nature. And I think sometimes, I know sometimes Karl gets a bad rap for that, right? And because that's an on-court thing, off-court thing, whatever. I think the Rudy and him dynamic in particular is an example of how Karl having a pleaser nature is really beneficial. I mean, he has gone out of his way. It's no breaking news here, but since last season, particularly early on, like kind of this chunk, right before he got hurt last year, he went out of his way to appease Rudy, to make Rudy happen, to do all those things. Like you said, maybe like to a fault. Maybe there was maybe a little bit too much, but it was in Karl's nature to look for that, and it wouldn't be for a lot of other, max contract guys in the league to try to make that happen. So I think that's one, just a credit to Karl, and I think it's been a little bit cleaner this year in terms of some of those deliveries. It was just I looked it up, just how many times Rudy has been assisted by player X or whatever. Karl is the most this season, 20 assists to Rudy. Mike Conley, 18. Kyle Anderson, 10. Anthony Edwards, 9. Shake Milton, 6. Nickeil Alexander-Walker, 2. Jaden McDaniels, 2. Troy Brown Jr., 1. Naz Reid, actually 0 assists to Rudy. And it's just kind of, it's kind of hard to look at some of those numbers and compare them to another one year versus another. You kind of have to go like assists per minute played or whatever. And Karl led the team in that last year. He only played 529 minutes with Rudy, given the injuries, but he had 30 assists, which was the highest rate of assists per minute played. And Kyle Anderson was the next highest. So even last year, when we're like, man, Kyle and Rudy worked so well last year, well, Karl had assists to Rudy more frequently than even Kyle did a year ago. He led the team in that element, in that stat last year, and he leads them in it again. I mean, to be fair, I get a little bit of the, oh my gosh, when there's the airmailed lobs and the turnovers that come out of whether it's Karl or anyone else, but often Karl, trying to seek Rudy out there. And it's just this interesting question of like the opportunity cost of that. It's like, okay, how frequently can you have a turnover on this look, the lob to Rudy, versus how many times he converts it with the dunk to make it profitable? It's a hard thing to calculate, because when it is a connection, it's like he's dunking that,
It looks great.
And it's highly effective. But you know what I'm saying? It's like this. I think Karl is above the line where it certainly makes sense to be making these passes, and that's what I think I need to remember, is not when it's a bad pass or it is a turnover to like roll my eyes, because I'm like, well, like in the aggregate, this is a very profitable action, and I think it's getting more and more profitable, more and more efficient as time goes along.
Well, I think on Saturday, and just in general, it looks less forced, and I don't know how quite to describe it, but the feeling that we had watching them in the first month of the season last season was he's forcing it to Rudy, and it just felt very forced, like he was sacrificing his own offense and maybe a better opportunity for himself at the expense of trying to get Rudy involved or trying to hit Rudy on a post up. Here on Saturday, everything was coming within the flow of the offense. It was coming off an action. It was coming off a screen. It was coming off ball movement. It was happening within the flow of the offense, much less forced. Whereas a year ago, it was almost like, okay, Karl's got the ball on the wing. I'm just going to try and throw it and make an awkward pass into the post because he's got somebody posted up. And it was like, it wasn't necessarily like always like lobs for dunks. Right. It was, I'm going to force it into the post to Rudy so that he can then maybe put the ball on the floor, which is not as effective when Rudy does that as when he's running for lob dunks.
That's a great distinction. Yeah, there's what Rudy, I think he said in that clip, like he's looking at me for the lobs and for the duck ins. And it's like, we know the lobs are better than the duck in catches.
Yeah.
Right. Because then
Right.
Rudy's got to make a move and go to the lefty hook or whatever, something like that, and make a move into scoring on him. And I think that probably is the distinction, right? Is that Karl is finding Rudy on the lobs more frequently than he's finding him on the duck ins, which means he's hitting the more profitable action more often than maybe he was a season ago. That's at least what my eye test says to me.
Because this is Minnesota, don't we call them gray duck-ins or?
I don't know.
It's my attempt at humor. I have a duck. I have ducks on my sweatshirt today. It's our softball team name.
Is loon technically a duck?
I don't know. It looks like one. I don't know. I didn't grow up here, so I don't know. Somebody can tell me.
A cool shirt, lunatics.
That's right.
Let me grab a break here really quick. I just want to let people know that today's show is brought to you by Falling Knife Brewing Company. I've been getting like pictures and stuff and videos sent to me from when the games are going on live and what the environment is in Falling Knife for the game day evenings. It looks fun. If you're looking for a place to, start watching these games with other Wolves fans, it's a consistent thing. It's not just Friday and Saturday night. So maybe if you're thinking about this Wednesday and I have tickets to the game because it's a rescheduled game, and you want to, watch the Wolves play Wemby and the Spurs, Falling Knife, that game's at 6:30 for a tip. So just check that out. They obviously, we enjoy the people there. We enjoy the beer there, but they also have Rectangle Pizza with a residency at the brewery as well. So beer, pizza, Wolves, check out Falling Knife Brewing Company in Northeast Minneapolis, just off of Broadway. All right, Chris, we can keep going on Rudy a little bit and also kind of fold in the triple bigs thing. Obviously, that was a big theme of this game too. Cat with 28, Rudy with 26, Naz with 23, all on very effective shooting. But continue on Rudy here.
Yeah, I think that defensively, I was kind of intrigued by how they were playing the other day.
Okay.
As well, especially with the three bigs on the floor.
Yeah, sorry about it.
It was. I think they struggled to guard a little bit, and you could notice like in the half court, it wasn't really as effective. I thought, and Charlotte was kind of getting what they wanted out of the half court out of their half court offense, which is why Finch made the switch after a little while to get a little more defense out there. But I was wondering as the game was going on, like, okay, Karl's playing well, Rudy's playing well, Naz is playing really well off the bench here, like, and the backcourt is really struggling to generate scoring. So is he going to do it? Is he going to play all three of them, and is he going to do it like at the end of the game? And Finch did it. And I wonder, while Ant is out, while Jaden's out, does he really consider this maybe a little more in that Spurs game as well, which you might be able to do it more in the Spurs game given their length as well. So that might be a matchup where you see that a little more on Wednesday night. What did you think about it?
Yeah, I think it's interesting how big of a deal we're making out of it.
I think we just like it because it's cool. It's like, ooh, look at it's three centers on the floor at once.
And this is fun. And I agree, but I think we should remove some of the novelty of it. One, just from this element of it. Naz Reid and Kyle Anderson, this, about the same size.
Right.
I mean, Naz maybe has like an inch on him, but they both have over 7 foot wingspans. They're both probably around like I don't know. Naz might weigh 5-10 more pounds than him, maybe. I don't know. But it's interesting to me because Kyle Anderson plays next to Karl-Anthony Towns and Rudy Gobert all the time.
Right.
And he's slower. He doesn't shoot threes.
Yep.
Right. I mean, he can, but Naz can handle some too. Finch feels more comfortable with Kyle really being like a wing handler. Naz is mostly just transition. But isn't that kind of a funny thing that we do? Like, we're like, whoa.
Yeah.
Naz is playing the three. I'm like, yeah, he subbed in for Kyle Anderson, who's like a center in ways too. I compare to like poor man's Nikola Jokic all the time. So I get it though. At the same time, I just wanted to say that. I thought the defense was bad. The defense was bad when the three bigs were out there. Very first play, I think I'm remembering correctly, there's a miscommunication between Troy Brown Jr. and Karl-Anthony Towns. Ish Smith cuts right behind Karl for a layup. The next possession, Karl doesn't recover out to the corner, and I think it was Gordon Hayward or PJ Washington or something hit a corner three on them. That is going to be the challenge of playing the three bigs, and in general, it's just kind of in ways you're now putting Karl in situations where he's kind of like a three. And I think that's the distinction. When Kyle is out there with Rudy and Cat always feels like the four. Rudy, when it's Cat and Naz, there's just more interchangeability, just kind of, it seems like psychologically in the way they're playing. And so you're going to put Karl in some of those positions, more perimeter oriented, to guard and move his feet and be aware of where these guards are cutting or shooters are spacing. And so, it like defensively, I thought it was 3 minutes. I thought it got somewhat exposed.
Mm-hmm.
Offensively, though, it was good.
Yeah.
Like that looks tough to stop, and,
right.
and to that end, I think we've talked about this before. Remember, I was always even in the past 2 seasons with playing Naz, it was always like, the numbers are bad with it. We're not going to go. I mean, Finch said that numerous times. It's like, the numbers have never been good with Naz and Karl or Naz and Rudy. Yeah. We're trying to stay away from it. And my opinion on why that is because it was always just like 2 minutes here and there. You might go 2 weeks and Naz and Karl have played like 4 total minutes together on the floor. And I'm like, of course the numbers aren't good. There's no rhythm being established in this. It's not part of your plan. It's a literal like break class in case of emergency sort of thing. And I think there's a lesson to be learned from that experience of like not necessarily trusting Naz at the 4 and having the numbers struggle accordingly. Now this year you start trusting it and you're playing Naz next to the bigs all the time. Right. And the numbers aren't great, but the numbers are not like the minus 15 net rating or whatever it was. I just think there's power in empowering a look in general, particularly when I think like you and I do believe Naz can move his feet and is fast enough to be able to do that. So what I would say is do it or don't. I think if you kind of split this in here and you have 2 or 3 minutes of Naz at the 3 here and there, I don't know. I'm not sure the numbers will work out. I'm not sure they will figure out how to navigate defensively, whether it's man or zone or whatever. But I do feel like this can be a weapon. I feel like this team is going to need more offense as the year goes on. And if I'm looking at the bench and the ways to inject more offense into this team, Naz Reid's the first person I look at. And to that end, that's like, okay, how do we play Naz more? Will you play him at the 3 more often? Or you play him next to the other 2 bigs? So it'll obviously be something we track over the course of the year, but I'd like them to lean into it as like a thing they get to a little bit every night, or maybe not. Or I think if you don't, I'm not sure it'll work. Does that make sense?
It kind of reminds me of like, how teams always have like, a small ball lineup that they deploy, right? Or like that's been a thing. And obviously the Warriors used to have their quote unquote death lineup that was like super small, right? This is like the complete opposite of that. It's like, I mean, it's like the Wolves is
the alive lineup.
The Wolves' version of a death lineup is like when they go super, super big. I mean, it's obviously it's not like a death lineup in terms of its effectiveness, but like
but it's this idea of doing something so differently.
Right, exactly. That's what I'm getting at.
Something.
Yeah. Right, exactly. It's like you go to this and you're like, well, let's just kind of see how this works for a few minutes, and then maybe you strike cold on some nights with it, where like a team is just baffled by it for 3 or 4 minutes, and all of a sudden you go on a 12-0 run or something like that. I wonder if we will see it more often. Like, and this is kind of one of the things that we've had this like ongoing back and forth with Finch about this, like, because he for like
he thinks we really want
for context for everybody out there. It's like over the summer when Naz had his press conference, Finch threw out there, he's like, maybe I'll put all 3 of them on the floor at the same time. And we were like, isn't that hysterical? Yeah. Right. And then he got asked about it at media day, I think it was my friend Jamal from ESPN asked him about it, and Finch was like, I was joking about that, I wasn't really serious about that, and so we would just give him a little grief about that, and then he did it like in the one game
accidentally,
right, and then we brought it up to him afterwards, and then like a few games later, he made that crack in Golden State when somebody asked him about it. He's like, yeah, these guys here loved it when
I was like,
these guys here loved it when I put 3 of them on the floor at the same time. So it's also like just a little behind the scenes, this ongoing joke, not joke, but like this ongoing thing which that Finch has with us in the media that like
totally is the thing.
We are noticing every time he does that, and
like a national reporter will ask about it, and he'll kind of like side
he'll look at us, and we start having like smirks on our faces, like, and he can see us laughing in the front row. Yeah.
I mean, I'm intrigued. I remain intrigued by it. I remain believing in the idea of like, whatever you're gonna do, right? Yeah. And that's what, like, they have kind of held that ethos with the double big look, right? With Towns and Rudy, they're like, we're doing this, and we're gonna live with it. We're gonna take our lumps, and because we ultimately believe we're gonna profit. I'm not sure if Finch is there in his head yet, right? Where the idea is that they're ultimately gonna profit. It seems to me right now that the only time in which it will be considered is a night in which Naz is rolling, as he was in that Charlotte game. Was it the Oklahoma City game, I think, where Naz was kind of similarly rolling in the fourth, and I remember being like, is he going to go to this? Is he going to go to it here? And Finch was like, I was really close. And I think he, I don't know, left Troy Brown Jr. in or something else there, who ended up having 17 points. I think that time I have the right games there. But it's something to track. But more broadly, I think the story of this game as it pertains to Naz is that he was awesome. Like just when he was on the floor as a 4. And I've had some frustration throughout the year where I don't know if it's the new position or he hit a bunch of threes at the beginning of the year, but it's felt for the past like 2-3 weeks broadly that he's had a little bit more of a feel of settling on the perimeter for threes, where he's shooting well from, but we know kind of like what his superpower is like taking guys off the dribble and being able to go attack and finish at the rim. And man, when I was going back and rewatching that game, it was like, it didn't matter who Charlotte had on him. He burned PJ Washington like 5 or 6 times, Nick Richards, whoever. And I think it's now fair to say that Naz like is a foot speed problem for 4s. Like, it obviously that was the case last year. He'd be, playing a backup 5 and they'd be trying to guard him on the perimeter and he could just go around them. He's doing that against 4s now. And I mean, Charlotte's not like the best defensive team in the league or anything like that, but there is his confidence in my eyes takes off once he can have one of those just kind of isolation, go around through faster than finishes on someone. And you saw a few of those early in the first half of this game, and you're like, all right, like this is a Naz game. And it was, ends the night with 23 points and was effective kind of regardless of who was on the floor next to him. So mostly just a good sign to see him really kind of clicking back into that 6th man role, if you will.
A couple things that I think I've noticed recently is you touched on it a little bit. His shot mix feels a lot more balanced now, whereas like you said, he was seemingly settling for just all 3s for a little while there.
Right.
But he's gotten back to attacking the basket much more recently. And I think one of the things that makes Naz so effective, and we've talked about like his decision making and his kind of ideal way of playing the way Finch likes to play offense. I think one thing that when you watch Naz, he is so effective at attacking closeouts and he's got a quick first dribble, quick first step, so that even if it is a 4 coming out to him, like if the ball's swinging around and somebody's got to come out to Naz, his ability to get by that person with his first step,
first dribble,
as they're still coming out towards him, that's I think, quote unquote, his superpower. Is like he's made up his mind before that ball gets there that once it gets to him, he is going into the lane. And by that time, it's already too late for the defender. Like, and because he's such a good 3-point shooter, they have to respect the fact that he could pull the trigger. And once that happens, it's like you're basically toast at that point. If he can get into that kind of situation, and that requires ball movement, that requires the defense to be shifting around, right? It doesn't come after just one pass; it comes after multiple passes.
Sure.
So I think when the offense is humming like that, and Naz is in the zone where he's thinking attack first and shoot only if it's open.
Sure.
That's the ideal way for Naz Reid to play offense, and that's what you saw on Saturday.
You know what I think the next level is passing off the bounce there. You know, he's got the pump and go, and he's getting into the middle of the lane, and he's able to find someone. I think he's so quick to it, you know, like, and his head gets down, he kind of almost looks like he's falling over as he's attacking the basket. But again, when I was looking up these Rudy assist numbers, Naz only has 1 assist to Rudy Gobert in his career.
Oh wow, I didn't realize it was just 1.
I mean, according to NBA, according to NBA.com, so they played 362 minutes together that last season, this season, 1 assist. And so, like, I do think, again, if Naz becomes more of a problem with that foot speed off the bounce a little bit more, I think you'll start seeing defenses like kind of bring that nail help, right, and guys shading in and to show Naz a second body. I feel confident that Naz can like kind of make that baseball pass to the corner or whatever as he starts driving, but can he have that little drop off to Rudy, right? That Cat does a good job of. The difference is Karl's kind of like slow in prodding when he's looking for that. Again, Naz looks like he's in like beginning a somersault when he starts like driving to the right. You know what I'm saying, right? Like it looks like he's gonna kind of fall over. Sometimes he often kind of does. But I just had that, you know, looking at these numbers and thinking about that game, you know, that's the next evolution for me of Naz. I think we know he can shoot it pretty well. We know he can use his foot speed against slower guys on the perimeter or even average guys. Can he also be a playmaker out of that? That's the next level. And that's when you start talking about like a 6th man of the year type of thing from him, because then he's got 3 different ways to get you every single night: shooting, driving, passing. Pretty much what we're seeing right now, night to night, is one of those things. I thought the Charlotte game was 2. You know, he's shooting it some and he's taking it off the dribble, but we talk about Naz all the time. He adds skills. He stacks them. He's done that for 5 years in the NBA. That's the next one I'm looking for. I want to continue talking about Naz. We'll grab a quick break here. All right, Chris. Speaking of Naz Reid, we can sprinkle in other things related here as well. I liked your story in the Sunday paper about Naz Reid and Kyle Anderson's sort of shoe game battle as they both wear size 15 shoes that are difficult to get unique sneakers in. Why don't you I guess I don't want to ruin the whole story, but tease it a little bit. I just had this in my notes next to talk about Naz's game.
It's just kind of one of those things where I forget how I think they talked about it maybe in an interview at some point. I always kind of
they talk about it in the locker room all the time.
Yeah, they talk about shoes all the time, like in the locker room for sure. But I registered in my head that like, Naz I think made a comment that, I was trying to get these shoes and Kyle got them first. So I was like, well, that's kind of interesting. You know, like that happens. Like
look at you, Mr. Reporter.
There's only like 1 pair of shoes out there that like
it is crazy,
right? And seemingly yes, because of the fact that they're size 15s. So basically, they know a lot of the same people from growing up in New Jersey.
Mhm.
That's just kind of how the basketball world operates. So they have their connections. Naz, tells me he's always checking all the apps, whatever shoe app is out there, he's checking it, right?
Mhm.
Kyle doing similarly. He's attended, conferences and things like that, and met people
Yeah, there was
there.
in over summer league
Yeah.
that was going on, and they went to it.
Yep.
I
So
forgot what it's called.
they're always kind of expanding their network. So if they see or hear about a shoe coming online, they check in with their guys. And sometimes it comes back to them that, oh, Naz already asked for this one, or Kyle already asked for this one. And so they're kind of beholden to like which one asked for the shoe first, right?
Mhm.
And so it does lead to a little competition. And they find out that, so the other one got the shoe first.
What was the shoe that was like the holy grail one that
Fragment
Kyle
ones,
got? Fragment ones.
Jordan
Okay.
Fragment ones and they do a lot of exchanging back and forth, like as well, or they'll sell stuff
Sure.
to each other if one has something. But that is one that Kyle does not want to sell to Naz, and Naz is not letting him. Not letting that one go. Like when I was talking to him at a practice, I think it was in Golden State, a couple weeks ago, when I talked to them about this. We were all kind of walking out together, and Naz he was like, man, those fragment ones. He's like, I need those, man. He's like, I want those.
Maybe somebody listening can
right, exactly. Maybe exactly. Yep. So it's a fun little, behind the scenes little story and relationship.
I looked those up, and just in my size, they were like $2,600.
Yeah, that's pretty much what they are. Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah. And yeah, you can imagine they each have about 250, 300 pairs they estimated. So you can imagine, the amount of money that they have sunk into their shoe collections.
Well, Naz has that new contract, man.
That's right. Exactly. And he said he views them as an investment too. So,
that's the thing. Is like a lot of there's probably some people who don't follow anything with shoes. In ways, there's like similarities to some of these shoes with like baseball cards, right?
Right.
To maybe do a generational gap thing here. Like I'm not sure Kyle's even worn those shoes, right? You kind of
he wore them once.
He wore them once. Okay.
He said he wore them once, and like Naz,
that's it.
Naz couldn't take it when he saw them. Basically, was what happened.
That's good. Yeah. So check that story out. I don't want to give away too much of it. It's StarTribune.com. That was in the Sunday paper. I read it online, but it was Sunday paper.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
The last thing I'd kind of just have to hit on, and I guess we can talk about this through the lens of the last two games. But no Ant, right, in Charlotte as well. It's been going for 40 minutes, haven't hit that, and they've won both of these games. Maybe we can talk a little bit about who and where and how they've been stepping up to quote unquote replace Ant. But I'm getting the sense that like Wednesday seems pretty realistic for Ant to be back. Just kind of going off of last week, Fincher's like, we hope to have Ant back this weekend. It kind of makes sense. They only play they played on Thursday, right? And I think that's when Thursday after the Utah game, Fincher's like, we hope to have him back this weekend. There's only the one game on Saturday and not another game till Wednesday. Probably made sense to give it the extra 4 full days of rest there rather than playing in Charlotte. But I mean, you're expecting Ant on Wednesday?
I guess.
I mean, we don't know.
Like
I'm not saying we know, but like, if I had to wager one way or the other, I would guess that Ant plays on Wednesday.
Yeah, we'll find out in a few hours here
at practice.
At practice,
maybe.
Other thing is
maybe
maybe. And the other thing is, Jaden's getting closer as well, I believe. And we saw him kind of working out after shoot around the other day.
Did you ask about that at all on the road in Charlotte?
I did not. No, I did not. So we'll probably ask Finch about that today.
Okay.
And I think Jordan McLaughlin also he's nearing his return date as well. So, I think they're starting to get healthier here. And yeah, and I kind of put this in the game story too. I said, I don't think it was a coincidence that Rudy had his best offensive day with Ant not playing,
Yeah, no, that's not a bad thing.
It's not a bad thing.
That's a stepping up into more shots, right? Like, there's never going to be I don't want to say never, but I'd be surprised if there's a game that Cat, Rudy, and Naz all score over 20 points in a game that Ant
is also playing. Yeah.
Maybe if they could, if Ant, gets in foul trouble in the first half or something like that, you would, again, where I think of is Naz. I think of it because kind of know what you're going to get from Karl night to night with Ant in, or like we know what Karl's game looks like when Ant's in, and we kind of are getting to see the degree to which he turns it up when Ant is out. So I think like the extra comes from Naz, but then also Rudy. Yeah, to your point, and maybe that was his teammates, like he said, feeling that and being like, okay, with Ant out, the profit of a pass to Rudy goes up comparatively to what else they have there. So I think it makes sense that Rudy gets the ball more in those situations. But I don't take it to be like a bad thing. I would want Rudy's shots to go back down once Ant gets in, I guess.
100%. And also, I do think that Ant has done a better job of looking for Rudy, and you listed off the assists as well. I still think that there's room for that partnership to grow, is what I'm also getting at here. Like, I still notice a couple times a game where it feels like Ant is hesitant to hit Rudy on a pass that guys on Saturday were not hesitant to throw the pass at.
Again, 9 assists in 443 minutes on the floor together. Ant has 9 assists to Rudy in 443 minutes on the floor together. That's 1 assist per 49 minutes played. That can't be what it is. Again, Towns is 21, right? Maybe it's not going to be all the way down there, but it has to be less. I will say it's growth off of last season. They played 1,639 minutes together and Ant only assisted Rudy 27 times. That was 1 assist every 61 minutes. So it's getting better. It still needs to get, as much as it's gotten better, it needs to be that much better again, I think, to get to a comfortable zone, but at least it's moving in the right direction.
It is moving in the right direction. I did notice, I was rewatching I think it was the OKC game before Ant got hurt. And there were a couple times in that game where it was like Ant could have gotten a pass to Rudy in this slot, and he just didn't. For whether he wanted to take the shot himself or just wasn't completely comfortable making the pass. So I wonder, just the effects of that, and if we get maybe a chance to talk to Ant about it, maybe it's worth revisiting how he feels that is going 20 games into the season, and kind of how he feels in terms of his comfort level of involving Rudy more.
It's interesting you bring up Jaden and Jordan McLaughlin as well. That will be the fallout from their returns. That sounds negative, but like the recourse from it will be, some less Troy Brown Jr., Shake Milton, even maybe Nickeil Alexander-Walker doesn't get the guaranteed minutes he's been getting for the rest of the time here. I don't really have like a strong take on that or whatever. I think that's the nature of being a good team with depth, is that, like Troy Brown Jr., you might go from having started these handful of games and having played well in it, but falling kind of back into like a 13 minutes a night role or something like that, which would be more than he was doing before when he was out of the rotation. So I something to track. I don't really have a like what's right or what's wrong in my mind. We know Jaden will go back to starting. I guess the one I'm most curious with is Jordan McLaughlin, because he was not a fixture of the rotation before. If Jaden McDaniels gets back and Jordan McLaughlin becomes a 15 minutes a night guy, now you're talking about at least one of Shake and Troy being out of the rotation and the other taking a hit to their minutes. But at the same time, we kind of feel, right, like this team could probably use some Jordan McLaughlin from time to time.
This is kind of how I envision it. I mean, I think you should probably give J-Mac at least a shot.
Yeah.
I feel like, because they've given Shake a long runway here, and it hasn't looked great for most of the time. So we'll see if they initiate kind of some J-Mac minutes. Troy Brown, I think, has earned to stay in the rotation based on his last couple of games for sure. So I feel like he's earned that minutes to where you put J-Mac kind of in that backup point guard role, give the minutes to Troy as well, and maybe Shake is the one that falls out of the rotation when that happens. That's at least how I kind of have it mapped out in my head.
I think even if you're of the mind that, from a shooting standpoint, Shake's going to break out of what this. I mean, I don't think this is going to be Shake the entirety.
I don't think so either. No.
But if we're a big thing, and you remember this from the summer when we started asking about Shake Milton, was a lot of excitement about Shake Milton pairing with Rudy. Right. And the net rating in the 139 Shake Milton and Rudy Gobert minutes is minus 11.5, which is really bad. And conversely, in 122 minutes, the Troy Brown Jr. and Rudy Gobert minutes are plus 18.6. So it's worked significantly better putting shooting around Rudy Gobert than a playmaker in Shake Milton, when all the other numbers are really positive, like Conley and Rudy plus 12, Ant and Rudy plus 11.9, Towns and Rudy plus 11.5, Nah and Rudy plus 2.7, Anderson and Rudy plus 1.5, McDaniels and Rudy plus 9.8, Naz minus 0.3. That's the next closest one, and then it's Shake minus 11.5. Like, the Shake and Rudy thing has not worked through the first 19 games of this season. And again, it's not because we don't believe it could or will later down the line, but if you need to make a decision now with Jaden McDaniels coming back or Jordan McLaughlin coming back, it's hard for me to find a justification to, if it was as simple as choosing between Shake and Troy. I think for now you have to choose Troy. At least the numbers bear that out.
100%. I'll say one thing about Troy that I've noticed. Finch talked about how he's a better shooter than he thought. I've watched Troy, and I think he's a little better defensively than I thought. For sure. I remember talking to people who cover the Lakers when the Wolves got him, and I asked, how's his defense, and they're like, well, he tries. He cares about defense, but like doesn't always work out. And I think watching him, and maybe it's just playing within the context of having a Rudy behind him as well, that maybe helps. But I think he's held up better on the defensive end of the floor than I had anticipated coming into the season.
I thought that was really important against Charlotte. I'm looking at that game and I'm like, all right, like, Terry Rozier and Gordon Hayward aren't like world beaters, but like they're good. Like they can get buckets. And you're without Ant and Jaden in that game, the two people who would take those matchups, you'd think. And they put Nikhil on Terry Rozier, which made sense, which left Troy Brown Jr. to guard Gordon Hayward, who's a good, strong isolation player. And that stood out to me in that game as well, that Troy and what I always try to say or remind people of, like, Troy's big. Like he's like a legit 6'7". And I think that does a lot for defensively, because I was thinking about, okay, if this was last season and Ant and Jaden are out for the game, your options to plug in there would be like Austin Rivers, Jalen Noel, Bryn Forbes, and Troy's certainly a better defender than all of them, but he's also certainly bigger than them, like Austin Rivers, he tried on defense too. But he's more like 6'3" and a lot thinner than like he wouldn't have been able to probably hold Gordon Hayward in that specific matchup there. So I'm with you. As the more we get to see Troy Brown, the more we say like 3-and-D all the time. Like, oh, so-and-so's like a 3-and-D guy and they signed for like $4 million. And then it ends up they're like kind of a 3 guy and not really a D guy, or they're just a D guy and not a 3 guy.
Right.
And frankly, like, I thought that was a fair expectation of what to get out of Troy Brown's. Like, maybe he'll shoot a little bit, probably not defense. He is showing elements of both. right? I think he is, like Finch said, a better shooter than we thought, and he's bigger and a better defender. I think he's a bench 3-and-D guy, and we throw that term around way too often. Like there's a bunch of them out there. There's just really not that many guys like that in the league. So again, credit to Troy, and I think that's reason to keep him in the rotation, kind of regardless of who's healthy or not.
And he's come up with some big moments late in close games too. Like he's got a little bit of intangibles working for him as well, where he kind of makes these hustle plays, hits a big shot, and got that offensive rebound that led to his
totally
three the other night.
He's got like 3 or 4 of those like crashing from the corner, getting an offensive rebound, and it leading to points on that possession. And I think a couple of those are in the last like 6 minutes of a game, when that really matters. So yeah, I'm picking up on that too.
100%.
All right. So we got I would go, if you're just, we got a couple days here, everyone, until the Wolves play on Wednesday. Chris will have probably an additional story out of today's practice, but I thought the gamer was really good off of Charlotte in just reminding us of kind of how far the Rudy progression has come. And then the Naz and Kyle story. I like shoes myself, so I was particularly intrigued by that story as well. So check those out, StarTribune.com. As you know, we're all out here asking for support in different sort of ways.
That's
Read
right.
those stories, subscribe to the Star Tribune. That helps Chris be able to be the guy who's on the road there too. And Chris, I can just kind of plug the YouTube channel here too. I'm hitting that subscribe button. That's helpful for us.
Smash that subscribe button.
Yes,
Don't hit
exactly.
it. You're supposed to smash it.
See, this is why I always, I listen to other podcasts and they're like, oh, rate and review.
Rate and review and smash that subscribe button.
Honestly, please don't rate and review. I don't care. That's okay. There's some very nice reviews on there that are very flattering things. A more helpful thing would be youtube.com/@DaneMooreNBA. Subscribe, which, then when you go to YouTube, it's going to populate for you. It's an easier pathway there. Get the Timberwolves on there. Get Jake paintings, howls, and growls. Get all your stuff. Subscribe. Get the little bar over there that helps us out in making money off of our content, whether that's written or video. We appreciate all that. Chris, appreciate you being here today, and I'll see you at practice.
Sounds good. Sounds good.
All right.
See you later, Dane.
Going to do Jace Frederick on Tuesday morning rather than Wednesday. We'll talk about whatever's been going on with this team recently. Again, not a game until Wednesday. So Jace and I on Tuesday morning. Until then, he's Chris. I'm Dane. Peace out.
How I'm feeling, man, I hope it never stop, yeah. Green and hard so you can find me in the crowd, yeah. Don't let standards ever